Okay, I got an interesting video for you guys today, and we're going to talk about, what's going to happen in 2026. Are we going to see a market crash? Are we going to see a bottoming out in the real estate market? What's going to happen? And I came across this graphic, I guess you want to call it today, called Periods When to Make Money. And at the very top, we have years in which panics have occurred and will occur again. So this is like basically the market getting wrecked, right? This is when the market tanked, when a panic happened, right? B is years of good times, high prices, and the time to sell stocks and values of all kinds. So the middle is when you sell, right? And I guess the top would be when the crash is actually happening. And then C, years of hard times, low prices, and a good time to buy stocks, corner lots, so they're throwing real estate in this, goods, etc., and hold till the boom reaches the years of good times, then unload. So obviously, up here at the top, panics, we have 1927, 1929, I believe was the start of the Great Depression. So I didn't actually look at the chart, but I'm assuming this is when the market crashed as you went into the Depression. 1945, like to do something in World War II. 1965, I have no idea. But as we get into the 80s here, 1981, we had a real estate crash here in Vancouver. 1999 would have been right before the dot-com bubble. 2019 was right before the pandemic, right? And I think the stock market went down this year. I'm not 100% sure. This isn't 100% accurate, right? But this piece of paper looks freaking ancient. Like, what is this, 1875? This says in the bottom of this thing right here, right? I don't know. But the piece of paper looks freaking ancient, right? And it's pretty close to being accurate, right? But then it says the next panic will be 2035 and then 2053, right? I guess this is like 18-year long cycles. And what's interesting about that is a lot of people talk about the 18-year cycle in housing, right? There's an 18-year cycle in the housing market. So it is interesting that this kind of lines up with that. Now we go down to years of good times, right? So 1926 would have been right before the panic. 1935 would have been a good time to sell. 1945 would have been a good time to sell. 53, 62, 1972, I believe that's when we had rampant inflation immediately after that. 1980, before the real estate crash. 1989, the real estate market crashed in 1990. So these three right here, to the best of my knowledge, are very accurate when you talk about real estate. 1999, before the dot-com bubble, if you're holding stocks. 2007, real estate and stocks. 2016, we had a very inflated real estate market here in Vancouver. So had you sold your home in 2016, at least on the detached and townhome side, I know condos ran for another year after that in 2017, but had you sold your detached or townhome, that would have been a great time to sell. And then the next time they have to sell in here is 2026. That's what they're saying is a good time to sell, right? Now, again, this isn't entirely accurate, right? Because this isn't, all asset classes move at different times, right? Just because it says sell in 2026 doesn't mean that you should sell an individual company that you own that you like. That company might do well through 2026. Gold might do well for 2026. A townhome in a certain area might do well through 2026. But they're saying on aggregate as a whole, it's good to liquidate your assets in 2026. And then years of hard times, okay? So it would have been a good time to buy in 1978, 1985, 1996, I think was the literal bottom of the 90s recession when it comes to housing prices. 2005 would have been a good time to buy. I agree with that. 2012 would have been an amazing time to buy. And even they have 2023 here, which I have clients who bought at the beginning of 2023 and literally sold a year later and made a bunch of money because that's exactly when the housing market bottomed out, at least a short-term bottom. And then, the people who sold like a year later made a bunch of money, right? And then again, what I think is like, they have the prices kind of going back up here and then peaking again in 2026. This is not true for Ontario and BC because the prices have done pretty much nothing but fall since like the spring of 2023. But if you bought a home in Calgary or like basically anywhere else in Canada aside from Ontario and BC, you would have been making money throughout this whole time period, right? And then maybe in those areas, it's time to sell. So it's not entirely accurate, but I thought it was a very interesting chart. Now, this is one of my favorite charts that I found, and somebody on TikTok sent this to me a couple months ago, but this is literally framing out the 18 housing year cycles, right? And this post is from February 10th, 2006. Okay. I agree with you that real estate busts happen in slow motion as compared to stock market bubbles. However, the exact same psychology is in play and the result for the spectators is the same. Here are some of the signs of an impending crash in any market, whether it's tulips, stocks, or real estate. There's a rapid increase in prices already happened in real estate, and he's taught this is pre-2008. There's a large number of speculators entering the market, already happened in real estate. There is talk that somehow this time things are different and that the bubble won't burst, currently happening and always wrong. Smart money gets out near the top, big developers cutting prices to lower inventory and decreasing number of new starts. This is starting in my opinion, so this has already been happening in our market for 3 years now. Newbie speculators continue to get in even after the top. They get in because everyone but them is getting rich in their mind. This is where we are now. Historically, real estate busts take about 4 years to play out from top to bottom. So we topped February 2022 and February 2026, according to this guy's analysis, would be the bottom of the market, meaning that prices won't hit bottom until about 2010. The typical price drop is about, and I think they bottomed in 2011, maybe 2012. The typical price drop is about 20%. It can take 6 to 12 years total before prices recover to the pre-bust high. So by 2015, prices should rebound to their current levels. Finally, anyone that is familiar with technical analysis can look at a chart of inflation-adjusted housing prices and see that the real estate market is in a very long-term uptrending channel. Each time prices reach the top of the channel, they will descend back to the bottom. This is very predictable, and we are now at the top of the channel. I'm not predicting gloom and doom or any other doomsday scenario. I'm only predicting that history will repeat itself as it always does. The vast majority of new investors will exit the market, and real estate investment will once again slip into obscurity until the next boom, which should be about 2020. This is nothing to fear, just an opinion to decide how you'll profit from the downturn. So the ridiculousness of this chart is that in February 2006, not only did he predict the crash and the recession, he somehow predicted the next recession and the next crash. And what's even crazier is he has a very small recession here in 2020. I don't know how you could even predict. I don't know how you do that. And then the prices rip immediately after the small recession, which is exactly what happened. And then he has prices peaking out right at the start of 2022, which is exactly what happened. And he has a recession here in 2022, which we never got. But if you guys remember, we actually did have, at least in the US, 2 back-to-back quarters of, what happened again, actually? We had a recession, and then they changed the definition. Yeah, we had a recession, and then they changed the definition. They changed it from recession to technical recession. We were in a technical recession, but we weren't in a recession. It was something along the lines of that. I remember we actually had a recession and they just changed the definition on Wikipedia, right? So I would say this is 100% accurate from 19 years ago. So what's interesting about this chart, I guess, what I want to highlight is, first off, if anybody says they know what's going to happen, they don't know what's going to happen, right? This is purely entertainment purposes. I find these things interesting. I know, probably a lot of people on this channel find these things interesting. So I like to talk about it for entertainment purposes. So he has this bottoming out. Basically, it looks like sometime in early 27, right? On this chart, we are basically right here in pricing, right? So we're not at the bottom, but according to this gentleman, we're pretty close to the bottom. Now, again, this is aggregate pricing. This is the US National Home Price Index. When you think about this, there could be a scenario where Ontario and BC don't have much further to go. But if Calgary, Edmonton, Montreal, and not the prairies, the Atlantic Canada start rolling over and going down, all of those areas combined can push the national home price average down while Ontario and BC are trading flat. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just giving you an example of what aggregate prices would look like, right? Or how it actually works, right? So you can see this trending down without the price of your home actually going down. If this is to be true, when we're talking about real estate, I would disagree that 2026 is the time to sell. I think the time to sell would have been early 2023 to early 2024 would have been the time to sell. That's, comparative to today, that would have been the high prices and the good time to sell. 2026, in my opinion, the prices are a lot lower. There's way more inventory and it's way harder to sell your home, right? And even if the prices go lower from now, I would still say that now wouldn't be a good time to sell. So I would say when we talk about real estate, at least in Vancouver or BC and Ontario, the last chart we looked at would be wrong. And if this chart is to play out and we are right here, I would say that this is a good time to buy, right? If you're going to give this chart merit, if you're going to make investment decisions based on this chart, because it's very difficult to time the bottom, right? Like, everyone's like, oh, don't catch a falling knife. I always catch falling knives. That's like part of my investing philosophy when I buy stocks. I will buy the falling knife, right? And if it falls more, I'll just buy more, right? And I know you can't do that in real estate, but I'm just saying like that saying isn't gospel, right? It doesn't ring true for everything. You know what I mean? But if this is to be the bottom, if sometime in 2027 is to be the bottom, and I think this is a very realistic thing, and I mean, he was right about pretty much everything else, now would be a good time to buy. Now, if you're going to make investment decisions based on this chart, the better time to buy would be probably sometime in 2028, right? But here's the thing, right? Whenever I say a good time to buy, everybody instantly assumes that I'm saying buy now because you can make a bunch of money, right? It's not at all what I'm saying. Even if you look at this other chart, even if you buy now, you're not looking at actually making money on your investment until 2029. I'm not saying buy now because you're going to make money. I'm not telling you to buy now either. But if you are an end user, the prices may not go much lower. And if you're in the market and you want to move right now, there's a lot of good inventory that you can choose from that you can move into and live there for 5 to 6 years. And if you look at this, they're basically predicting that the next boom is going to be around 2032. That's the boom. But usually before the boom, you'll have prices slowly going up and into the boom, right? Like just how I said in my last video, sales activity doesn't dramatically increase until the prices are already going up. Once the prices are going up and everybody sees that the prices are going up, then everybody feels safer about buying real estate. Then everybody piles in, sales activity increases dramatically, and then the prices go up faster. So I think it's a good time to buy if you're an end user. If you are an investor, in my opinion, there's probably going to be a better time to buy, depending on what you buy, right? If you're buying a detached home, there may not be a much better time than this, right? That's my opinion. I could be completely wrong. But if you're an end user, tons of inventory to choose from, the prices are substantially lower than what they were in the past. And if you plan to live there for 5, 6, 7 years, you can pick the home you like. You have time to think about what you're doing, put your subjects in, and just expect that the prices might be lower after you buy it. Just expect that you may not make money on it for 4 or 5 years. But again, you're buying it to live there. But yeah, I don't know. I thought those 2 charts were pretty interesting. And if you did as well, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to chat with me about buying or selling real estate in the Fraser Valley, there's a link down in the description. Otherwise, I'm that Agent Kelly. I'm making moves to move you. Peace.